Welcome to a Milk Market Tidbit for the March 2023 USDA Cold Storage Report, which came out yesterday. And this is Dr. Lawrence Jones with Farm Institute, and I'm recording this on April 26th. All right, so we had the cold storage report came out yesterday. And usually when I start looking at this, one of the first questions I ask is, what is it that we knew before the report actually came out? So let's kind of dig into that just a little bit. So this is a graph of cheese production. So we won't know the actual production for March until we get the dairy products report here this next week. But one of the things I wanted to ask is, what has American cheese been doing? And so it looks like it has been climbing up, and in fact, we're expecting this next one to be even a bit higher. And the normal change is for adding about 245 million pounds of American cheese per day. And we've been just on an impressive rise here, 2.7%, since 2015 would be that slope there. So now let's look at the Italian cheeses. And they've not been coming up nearly as fast. And in fact, right now, a typical change would be about 288 million pounds a day. So that's going to put it in about here. So we're going to be below trend line. And this growth has been, a little bit more modest at 2%. So again, we've been a little bit down on Italian cheeses. So what we know going into this is that typical cheddar production would be, above trend line, and typical Italian production would be kind of below trend line because we've seen that dropping a little bit there. All right, so we got the cold storage report. Here was the February number. Here's what I call typical. That's where I go and I kind of look and see what would have normally happened. And we were thinking it would come up about 16 million pounds to about 1.46. Where we actually ended up was about 13.5 million pounds at about 1.46. So very, very close to that. StoneX was a little bit lighter. So they missed it just a little bit. And again, I'm not critical at all of StoneX because I'm very impressed that they actually put out their estimates. But one of the big things that did come out of this, even though it was pretty well in a typical fashion, is what happened to the stocks of Italian and American cheeses. And in fact, Italian cheeses went down about 7.7 million pounds, where American type cheeses were up 17.7. But that's exactly what we would have thought would happen given the production numbers that we had prior to this going in. If we look at the actual cheese stocks, it's up just a little bit here, but we're way below trend line. And I believe that this coming down here is probably as much a factor of interest rates going up as anything. But again, a very, very impressive growth since 2015 of about 3.5% growth. So that just cannot be kept up. And being somewhere in this 1.4 billion pounds of cold storage, seems about right now. We got the butter stocks. So typical, I had it about 8.4 million pounds. It actually came in coming down about 2 million pounds here. StoneX was a little heavy. They thought it would actually go up about 28 million. So again, they were a little higher on that. And so if we look at the butter stocks, very, very seasonal, as we've said before. But I think we've really kind of cut off what we've been doing in 2020 and 2021. We've kind of come back to a more typical butter stocks. And so they're below trend line. At this point, they came down a little bit. So cheese stocks grew at a typical pace, with American and Italian stocks basically following expected production. So again, when you stand back and look at the big picture, there was nothing overly surprising there. Butter stocks are low and have been low. All right, this next week is going to have the fourth National Dairy Sales Report, and then we're going to close out April. So we'll get the class and components, and then the Dairy Products Report, which is one of my most favorite reports, will be out next Friday.